Welcome to Steady as She Goes, the podcast from the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Heritage Centre, coming to you, of course, on New Year's Eve. And we wish everybody a very happy New Year, and we wish you fair sailing for the coming year, 2026. Thank you for everyone getting in touch following our recent interview with Terry Conlon on episode 2. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and it's been great to hear just how much that conversation resonated with listeners. It clearly struck a chord with people who care deeply about ships, shipping, and Ireland's maritime story. And of course, the book is available through ourselves here. We were also very pleased to see continued coverage of Ireland's maritime heritage in the Marine Times newspaper, with a full page, of course, dedicated to maritime history in every single issue. So keep an eye out for your next issue in your local newsagents. Obviously, we want to promote maritime matters, and as we come across sites or pages that we like, we'll do our best to give them a shout out here on the podcast. And a special shout out in this episode goes to the Irish Shipping Limited Facebook page, which is a fantastic resource for anybody with an interest in ships and stories of Irish Shipping Limited. Well done to the likes of Jerry McGovern, Robbie Cox, and all the crew on that page for their excellent, interesting content. A little bit of an update from the centre here itself. Although we're taking a short break during the Christmas and New Year period, there's still plenty going on behind the scenes, and this quieter time allows us to plan future exhibits, talks, and events, and to look ahead at how we can continue to grow the centre and its role within the community. Ideas are constantly being discussed, artefacts reviewed, and possibilities explored. And we're incredibly grateful to everyone who continues to support the centre through visits and donations and the loan of items, etc. At the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Heritage Centre, of course, will reopen following the festive break on Saturday the 10th of January from 12 noon to 1600. Some further news from the centre, and we are now on TikTok. So keep an eye out for Rosslare Maritime Heritage on TikTok. We'll be bringing you further updates about that in the near future. So anyone that's on TikTok or anybody you know, have a look at the page and, of course, give us any feedback. Always welcome. This episode's main feature focuses on how the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Heritage Centre came into being, and the people whose vision and commitment made it possible. So cast your minds back to the 19th of November 2012. The N11 into Rosslare was lined with cars. The Gardaí were on hand to manage the traffic, and they needed to be. There was even a very special flyover from the Coast Guard helicopter based at Waterford, Rescue 117. It was a truly momentous occasion. That was the night we first opened our doors to the public. I'm delighted to say that I'm now joined here at the centre by none other than the chairman of the group, John Boyce, and Leo Coy, two of the founder members of the group and the centre itself. You're very welcome aboard, gents.
Hi, Sean. Evening.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, everybody.
So, turning to yourself first, Leo, it's hard to believe that it's over 13 years now since that very night. Did you ever think that we'd be sitting here all this time later, now recording a podcast and having Facebook and TikTok pages, and I suppose the fact that we're still here?
No, Sean, it's hard to believe that when we first started in 2004 with the commemoration of the World Concord, that we'd be sitting here now in our own maritime centre with all our collections and everything. It's absolutely unbelievable.
And happy memories from that night back in 2012 for yourself, I expect, John?
I had several memories of that night, Sean. Number one was the amount of people that turned up. The place was absolutely chock-a-block and heaving here. Traffic outside was marshalled, and it was absolutely fantastic to see the rescue helicopter traded searchlight across the building here on that particular night.
And Leo, I suppose this is a huge undertaking, and it's been going on a good while now. How did you get involved with the group initially, and where did your interest in local and maritime history come from?
Well, going back to the World Concord again, that's how it all started. We started collecting information on that rescue and about the heroes of Rosslare Harbour. And we got the families involved, and that sort of got something going with me. And after that, we we wrote the first book on Rosslare Harbour, and I began to take a lot of more interest. And I was always interested in the lifeboat because of the Douglas Hyde. So that's how really my interest got going. And I always loved books, and to be involved in writing books and being involved in putting together books for the group has really driven me on.
And we will feature that rescue on a future episode, but just give us a tiny teaser, because you've referred to it there, and it's a big act to spur you on into what you've ended up doing. So what was the World Concord rescue?
The World Concord rescue was, the World Concord was a tanker, and she broke in half in the Irish Sea. And 2 lifeboats were sent out to rescue the crew. The Rosslare Harbour crew were called, and they were in the aft part. The crew were in the aft part of the tanker, and they were drifting up northwards in the Irish Sea. So Dickie Welsh and his brave crew set off to try and rescue 7 Liberian tanker sailors, and they were at sea for over 24 hours in horrendous conditions in an open cockpit lifeboat, and I'll tell you later about what the conditions were like. But it was a dramatic rescue by heroes of the Rosslare Harbour lifeboat.
Brilliant. Thanks for that insight, Leo. And it is a wonderful story, and I can't wait to do the official podcast on that particular rescue. It's fascinating stuff, and just listen to you talking about it there now would put hairs on the back of your head. And John, it's fair to say that you have more than a passing interest in the maritime world, and you spent a little bit of time at sea yourself, if you'd like to tell the listeners a little bit about that, and where the inspiration came from to start exhibiting and collecting, and then ending up here in the centre itself.
Well, my seagoing career started in the early 70s, actually through Leo's late father, Paddy Coy. I was living in the UK at the time, and I came home to set up home here in Rosslare Harbour and looking for work. And Paddy said to me, he said, why don't you try the boats? So I went down to the port in Rosslare, got permission to go aboard the Caledonian Princess, which is the ship on the route that particular time. And I saw the chief steward on board. And 40 odd years later, I finished my time at sea. I was a steward on the ships for, as I say, well over 40 years. Within those 40 years, I started collecting postcards of ferries. And then I started buying shipping magazines. So both the postcard and the shipping magazines grew and grew and grew into hundreds. So when the Maritime Centre opened here, I found a home for them. So I was able to exhibit of the postcards of particular ferry events, etc.
Some would say, Leo, that the reason the centre began was because John's wife, Bridgie, wanted to find a home for the various artefacts, but we might wait and ask her about that in the future. But on a more serious note, I think you would have experienced over the years that John and Brian and a few of the rest of the lads are quite particular about their collections, how they collect and how they exhibit. Would that be fair?
Yeah, definitely. We're very lucky that we've got some crew who really take pride in their collections, and also they guard them with their lives. We very often in the centre on a Saturday afternoon, somebody will bring in a photograph of a ship or something interesting, and somebody else will say, "I've got a better one at home." That goes on all the time.
All in good crack as well. In fairness, always a good atmosphere. And like you talked about the Saturdays there, Leo, you're very well established now, obviously, and you know it's a regular thing. And just tell us a little bit what goes on here from week to week, and what activities the group get involved in, and what actually happens at the centre.
Well, on Saturday afternoon, that's our main afternoon, and we have people dropping in. We have a regular crew who come for a cup of tea and their tab nabs and their chat with all their mates, and it's great. It's better than a men's shed I think the atmosphere is really good. It's the place to be on a Saturday afternoon. Plenty of stories about the sea and everything else.
Fantastic. And I suppose it's fair to say, John, that from the very word go, and I remember that night in particular, and you've already mentioned the crowd that was here, but the local community really came out to support the group from the very beginning and the exhibitions that went on. And it's been like that, all the time. And you must be really happy with that community support for a community venture like this.
On the opening night, Sean, yeah, never forget it because we had a full size at marquee outside. And you mentioned my good wife Bridget there a few minutes ago, and she got a crew on board, and they done all the catering that night. And it was an absolutely brilliant night. And we had the one and only Liam Griffin, the proprietor of the famous Hotel Rosslare, who opened the building for us on that night.
Brilliant stuff. And, from my own experience from coming in and out here, the doors are always open and you're very welcoming here. But you always want to see more people and new people. And if they want to join the group, obviously you're very open to that as well. And you have people that come from all around, don't you?
We certainly do. We have them from far and wide. And as one of our crew, Brian Clare, who was from Passage down there in Waterford, he said, come in on a Saturday, we'll put the kettle on, we'll have a few tab nabs, which are buns and biscuits, etc. And sometimes we'll talk about ships.
Yeah, that's a regular phrase from Brian, and I'll have to correct the record in case he gets on to me, but he's from Cairn, but the wonderful province of Munster has adopted him. Thankfully, he's separated from us by a drop of water now, and that's meant in jest as well, of course. Leo, what's your most memorable moment from the last 13 plus years, from the centre here itself, or from anything that you've done as a group?
Well, I've got two memorable moments. I'm involved with the Rosslare Harbour Festival as well, and we try to have a French influence. We try to have some connection with France during the festival. And a couple of years ago, in the Maritime Heritage Centre, we had a guy from Granville in France talking about the history of the trade between France and Rosslare, France and Ireland. And we also had the French ambassador come to our Maritime Heritage Centre. So that was a big day for us, for the festival and for the Maritime Centre as well. And the other thing is that we produced a book called Irish Shipping Limited, which is a classic. And every time I open it, I get goosebumps. It's so good. It was put together by four of us. And really, really worthwhile and beautiful production.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice publication. And I remember sitting at this same table actually proofreading that with you, and what a labour of love that was. And the crack that went into that book, I think the crack that went into it probably made it as good as it is, to be fair. And yeah, it's super stuff. John, slightly different question for yourself. What's your favourite thing in the centre? What's your favourite artefact, or what's your favourite memory from the centre itself? What springs to mind when you think of this place?
If I could just go back, you asked Leo there about his fond memories, and a sad memory, but a fond memory. And we, as a group of maritime enthusiasts, played the leading role in the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the ill-fated St. Phelim, which crashed off Tusker Rock.
The Aer Lingus Viscount,
the Aer Lingus Viscount, St. Phelim, in March 1968. And as I say, not repeating myself, we played a leading role in that. We got one of the Navy vessels come down. We got family members of the people that were lost. They had never been to the burial ground before. So we were absolutely overwhelmed with the great backing we got. We got TV coverage, etc. So it was brilliant.
Yeah, that was a really special event, and the outpouring of gratitude from the families that time was incredible. It was the first time, the only time those people had ever gone to the place where their loved ones had perished, and it was very special. And again, it's something we will feature on the podcast in the future. Leo, it would be remiss of us in discussing the centre and the exhibitions not to talk about some of the guys who soldiered and sailed with us, and they're sadly no longer with us today. They stood their watch and they put the hours in, and they really enjoyed themselves when they were with us, and we really enjoyed their company. And I'm talking about the likes of Jack O'Leary, George Malloy, Pat Busher, Joe Busher, John Power, all wonderful characters and great servants over the years to the centre.
Yes, they were. Jack O'Leary and George and Pat were with us right from the beginning, and Joe and John Power came along later. But they all added something to our knowledge and to our centre. They made the centre what it is today. These guys with their stories of their seagoing experiences, and their crack on a Saturday afternoon. They will be they are sorely missed, and as John said before, that the Maritime Heritage Centre is never empty. These five are always on watch, and they're always looking after us.
Yeah, that's a lovely thought. And John, if you'd like to expand on that thought that Leo said there about the lads, and you believe that this building is never empty.
Yes, when we close the door here, lock up of a Saturday, the place is never empty as regards personnel, because the five that Leo just mentioned there, they're on permanent nights here. They keep the place safe and sound.
That's a lovely tribute to the guys, and we have plans to recognise them in the podcast and have some lectures on some of the stuff they did and things in the future. So we remember them as we record this podcast. Leo, what does the future hold? Where is the centre going? What would you like to see happen here at the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Centre? Are you happy with what you've got, or is there more to come?
We're bursting at our seams. We've got so much stuff. We've got a brilliant collection of models. We've got so many of Brian Clare's and other paintings, and we've got the biggest collection of books outside the National Library. So in the future, really, we'd look for more space, an extension onto this place if that was possible, or for a new premises somewhere. But we need to expand, because our records get bigger every year, and we need a place to keep them and to look after.
Great stuff. So you're not resting on your laurels. There's certainly more seas for this ship to cross, and it's really good to hear that drive and enthusiasm is still there after over 13 years at the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Heritage Centre. We'll have John back with us a little bit later in the episode with a reflection of movements in Rosslare Europort over the last year or so. Is there anything you'd like to add in before we finish up this segment, gents?
Yeah, I'd agree 100% with what Leo was saying there. We need to expand. This building here could be a fantastic tourist attraction. So rather than being open just as a Saturday afternoon, we could be open here 3, 4, 5 days a week from, we'll say, 9 to 5. We need some funding, obviously. So hopefully that will come through in future days.
So there you go, folks. If you've got deep pockets or even shallow pockets, come on down and donate to the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Heritage Centre to let the lads expand and continue on with the great work they're doing. Guys, it's been fantastic to have you aboard. We'll talk to you again in numerous future episodes of Steady As She Goes. But for now, Happy New Year to you both, and fair sailing.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Steady as she goes.
And thanks once again to Leo and John for giving us a little bit of an insight into the background and the workings of the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Heritage Centre. Of course, as we always say, we're open from 12 noon to 1600 on Saturdays. Entry is free of charge, and all are very welcome. Turning now to news from around the coast, and as ever, there's plenty happening across Irish waters. Winter is a busy and often challenging time for everyone working at sea. Shorter days, frequent Atlantic systems, and heavy seas all combine to make maritime operations more demanding. But across the country, ports, crews, and volunteers continue to get on with the job. RNLI crews remain very much at the forefront of maritime safety. Lifeboat volunteers continue to respond to call-outs in difficult conditions, reminding us just how vital their role is around our coastline. I was speaking recently to some of the locals in Fishguard, and the initial reports following the grounding of the guard vessel Resolute in early December were most complimentary about the lifeboat crew involved in that shout. So well done to all concerned who operated very professionally in a tricky situation. News from Tides and Tails and the 2026 tide tables are now available locally. So the 2026 Ireland Cheek Point tide tables have now landed locally and are available to purchase at Power's Cheek Point stores, making it easier than ever for people in the area to stay informed about the rhythms of the river shore and Waterford Harbour. An essential companion for walkers, swimmers, boaters, anglers, and anyone with a curiosity about the tides. These tables provide trusted daily tidal information for the year ahead. So whether you're planning a riverside stroll, a safe swim, or time on the water, having accurate local tide data close to hand is invaluable. And all proceeds from the sale of the tide tables go directly to Waterford City River Rescue, meaning each purchase supports the vital life-saving work carried out on our local waterways. As noted on the Tides and Tails Facebook page, the tide tables are also available from Burns of Ballyhack, offering another convenient local outlet. So pick up a copy when you're out doing the messages and support a great local cause, and stay in tune with the tides throughout 2026. It was with great sadness that the coastal community of Wexford and beyond learned of the passing of Declan Bates of Kilmore Quay. Declan, much loved husband of Alicia and a devoted father and grandfather, tragically passed away on the 11th of December 2025. His family, including his children, siblings, grandchildren and extended relatives, have paid tribute to a cherished man whose presence will be sorely missed. A familiar face around the harbour, Declan was best known recently as the driving force behind Wexford River Cruises, a much-loved new addition to the maritime life of the region and a firm favourite with local and visitors alike. His passion for the sea and his community ensured that countless people enjoyed the beauty of the coastline from the water. He will be remembered fondly for his warmth, generosity and his lifelong connection to the sea, a true son of Kilmore Quay whose loss is keenly felt along the coast that he loves so well. Aresh de Gareva Hanam Deelish. In RNLI news, a notable moment in RNLI history is set to take place on Sunday the 11th of January, when the Newcastle lifeboat on the northeast coast of the UK, the last operational Mersey-class lifeboat in the fleet, will stand down from service at 12:20 p.m, which coincidentally is the number of that lifeboat vessel itself. This marks the retirement of a class of lifeboat that has given decades of distinguished service around the coast of Ireland and the UK. Introduced in the late 1980s, the Mersey class became synonymous with reliability, strength and life-saving professionalism, operating in some of the most challenging sea conditions imaginable. The Mersey class also holds a strong local connection for us, having served for many years at Kilmore Quay, where it was a familiar and reassuring sight to fishermen, sailors and the wider coastal community. Many rescues carried out from the Wexford coast were undertaken by the Mersey class lifeboats, crewed by dedicated local volunteers. For generations of crew members and countless casualties brought safely home, the Mersey has been a trusted workhorse, and its final withdrawal from service represents not just a change in technology, but the closing of an important chapter in RNLI history. And as the lifeboat finishes up operations, it does so with an extraordinary legacy, one built on courage, commitment, and lives saved at sea. A truly historic moment for the RNLI and for coastal communities everywhere. Staying with lifeboat news, Arklow RNLI is currently in its 199th year of operation, and preparations are already underway to mark its truly remarkable milestone in 2026, which will be 200 years of continuous life-saving service to the community, and what an achievement that is. As part of these preparations, the station is making an appeal for help in building a rich archive of Arklow RNLI's history. They're looking for photographs of former lifeboats, the station through the decades, and most importantly, images of past crews and their families, going back as far as anyone might have. So if you're going through old photo boxes, albums or family papers, and come across photographs, paintings, certificates of service, awards, family heirlooms, or any old video footage that you'd be willing to share, the station would love to hear from you. Material can be shared via Arklow Ornelai Facebook page or by email to mark@aslsafety.com. And you can, of course, get in touch with us here on our own page if you'd like us to make contact with the folks at Arklow for you. It's a wonderful opportunity ahead of next year's bicentenary to celebrate nearly 2 centuries of courage, community spirit, and lives saved at sea, and to ensure those stories are preserved for generations to come, which is, of course, what we're all about here in Rosslare as well. So best of luck to Arklow with their commemoration, and we'll hope to pop up during what will be a very happy and celebratory year for the folks at Arklow RNLI. We'll come back with some more news from around the coast later, but now we'd like to move to our On Watch segment. And when I say our guys are on watch, they really are. Nothing moves without the Rosslare Maritime enthusiasts knowing. And here in Rosslare, we have John Boyce, Enda Murphy, and Leo Coy, always keeping an eye on movements in and out of the harbour. Brian Boyce is also regularly on watch, often armed with his trusty camera. And if a vessel appears on the horizon, the chances are that Brian is ready and waiting with the lens. Along the south coast, keeping watch on New Ross and Waterford, are Brian Clear and Michael Cusick, and they follow shipping movements very closely. And then, of course, there's James Taylor. He could quite literally pop up anywhere if something interesting is happening afloat, always ready with the phone and the camera as well. Together, these observations helped paint a real coast-wide picture of maritime life and shipping activity. I'm glad to say I'm joined again now by John Boyce, and John, you have a very large ledger-style book in front of you. So, as I understand, you literally log everything that moves in and out of Rosslare. Is that right?
That's correct, Sean. We were very lucky to get an old ledger that was used in Rosslare Port many years ago. And a good friend of ours, Jimmy Boyce, passed that on to us. Jimmy understands it was going to be disposed of, or they had no further use for it down there. And I note the first entry into that particular logbook was a ship arrived from Garston in Liverpool, named the Mira, and she arrived early April 1955 with a cargo of coal. And that was continued on then till 1971. And the last entry in that particular book was the Mary Agnes, a fishing vessel, which I would probably believe is a brand new vessel. She arrived November 1975 from Holland.
And that entry is there in the ledger as well, as you have it in front of you. And this is not just a scrapbook, but it's a real old style bound ledger, a real piece of history, to be fair. And the entries are very diligent in it. And the way you carried on then, when did you start recording in the book itself?
Well, I brought the book up here one Saturday afternoon to show the group exactly what was inside the book there, the records. And between Brian Clare and myself, Brian said, why don't we start recording the ships? So we started recording in 2017, Sunday the 24th of September. And I know on that particular entry, there was 4 vessels in port. The Isle of Innisfree, the Stena Europe, the Oscar Wilde, and the research vessel Celtic Voyager. And that continued up to the present day. Every shipping movement, every ferry, every coaster that either came alongside or went to anchor for shelter, every sailing vessel, pleasure craft, visiting trawlers, every single one is recorded. And if I was out and about, I just kept an eye on the app marinetraffic.com, which gives you a mind of information on shipping movements. So if I happen to be out of the port area during the week or whatever, everything came up on that. Also, if I was unable to identify on marine traffic a particular vessel, I would toddle off to the top of the cliff with my binoculars and wait patiently till the ship showed the name.
Excellent. It's really good to see the continuation of the recording. And as I understand it, it's yourself and your brother Brian Boyce now who manage the the logging of the ships, and between yourself and himself, it's great to see the continuation of the recording of history live, really. And I noted when I was going through the ledger itself as well that Brian has noted significant world events as well. I noted the COVID-19 pandemic and when it was started, and easing of restrictions, and then of course Brexit, which, as we go through the log, we can see the increase of ships. And I even seen an entry there from Brian to say that all the freight traffic was backed up the hill, and those locally here in Rosslare will remember there was record tailbacks, following Brexit, and the new ships coming into the port while we experienced teething problems. But the log is being very diligently kept. It would be fair to say to yourself and Brian, yeah.
That's correct, Sean. Yeah, it's great to be able to record this because after our time, somebody else can look back on the day, as that the fella says, and saw what shipping movements were coming in like.
And you give an example there of one of the days, and there was four ships, which many people will remember. There was only the couple of ships that operated in and out of Rosslare, and they were kind of the standard every day, same time, same place. But then Brexit happened, and we saw an increase not only of movements but of vessels coming in and out of the port, new names and new shapes, new colours even that we'd never seen before. Have you got an example of a few of those there?
That's correct, Sean. Yeah, as you say, Brexit kicked in there on the 1st of January 2021, and ships became bigger. The Visby arrived, the Drotten, the Stena Estrid, and the Stena Embla. Ships that could sweep a massive amount of cargo, roll on, roll off trucks, trailers, etc. So ships got bigger and the port got very, very busy. There were like buses. There was another one behind, as the fella says.
Yeah, it was amazing, and it still is. To be fair, we have retained all of that tonnage, if not more tonnage, bigger ships that we never thought we'd see the likes of locally here, I suppose, and neither did anybody else. And it just shows you how the marine economy changes, with world events, and how things change, and how operators can switch quite quickly when they need to. And right up to the present day, then I think last couple of weeks it was quite busy leading up to the Christmas period, obviously. But was it around the 20th or 21st? There was quite a haul of ships in and around the port on that day.
That's correct, Sean. Monday the 20th of December 2025, 8 ships at various stages of the day within the 24-hour period came alongside in the port. Stena Line Stena Nordica, Irish Ferries Isle of Inish Free, 2 vessels from DFDS, the Victoria Seaways and the Athena Seaways, and 3 vessels running to Cherbourg, down to as far as Sandantar in Spain, the Cotentin, the Galicia, the Santona, and one in also from Zeebrugge, the Finwave. And the Finwave is one of 4 that have been in the port over the last few years. There's Fin Sun, the Finwave,
And a couple of other Finland ships.
yeah,
Four altogether.
Four
Yeah.
altogether. I can't recall the name of the other, but they're in the log. There is every ship, every ferry that came in and out, cargo vessels, etc. They're all logged in the book.
And the Finline's vessels have really changed again the dynamic of the port. And for anyone familiar with Rosslare Europort, it has undergone quite significant development recently on the shore side. And what would have been the old car lanes, which was a massive open area, really has now been transformed into a trailer park. And just to give people an idea of the amount of freight that Finlines are moving in and out of Rosslare, that freight yard gets completely emptied prior to every arrival of a Finline ship, and that allows the stevedores in Rosslare to short drop, as we call it, the cargo from the Finline's vessel straight into that open area, and within a matter of hours the place is full, and it's incredible to watch it. And we'll try and get some time lapse photography for the Facebook page in days to come. I know we're going to revisit it later in January, but just to give the listeners a rough idea on kind of a month by month basis, I know you have rough figures up to around the end of November, let's say. So just as a little teaser, how many vessels roughly moved in and out of Rosslare for, let's say, the 11 months up to the end of November, do you reckon?
Well, the year to date, Sean, up to the 20th of December this year, total movements, that's ships at anchor, ships that have come alongside, etc., 1,856 in total.
So there you have it, folks. That's a huge amount of movements, and each one of them being kept an eye on by our men on watch here in the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Heritage Centre. While I have you, John, just some up to date ferry news. We heard recently on the wires, as the fella says, that unfortunately Stena Line are going to be moving Stena Nordica away from the port for up to 5 months, as far as we're aware, to go back into dry dock herself and also to relieve some other vessels on the various routes. And she'll be replaced by the much smaller Ben McCree of Isle of Man steam packet, which has been chartered in. A little bit worrying, one would have to say, John, with Stena. They recently pulled back from the French route, and now this replacement of the Nordica, albeit temporarily, by a much smaller vessel, is a little fair to say a little bit of concern around the place with that. Would you agree?
That's correct, Sean. I agree 100%, yeah. This time of the year now, going forward into New Year, when traffic starts moving again, the vessel is too small for this route. And as I said, the Nordica, she's away to relieve some of the ships, the Superfast 7, the Superfast 8 on the Belfast Cairn Rhine route. And she's also relieving the vessels up there in Holyhead so they can go to refit as well.
Yeah, as I say, a little bit concerning. We do hope that, Stena Line have repeated over the years, even during the very, very lean times in the early days of Brexit, that they are fully committed to that route. But it would be quite concerning when you see this rollback, especially during springtime, Six Nations time. You would expect there to be better tonnage on the route. No disrespect to the crew of the Ben McCree, but she is much smaller and doesn't have the capacity. So we'll keep a close eye on that one and hope that, I suppose the Nordica is so much more flexible than the good old Stena Europe was. She wasn't that flexible in that she didn't have the speed and the suitability to other link spans, etc. So let's hope that when the Stena Nordica comes back, she's fully fit for service, and there's a long committal to the route there by Stena Line. John, thanks very much for joining us again with the updates there on the movements from Rosslare Europort. We'll probably be back in the next episode, or certainly in the very near future, with a full overview of movements in and out of Rosslare. But you guys will be on watch anyway throughout the festive period and well into the new year.
We certainly will, Sean. We'll keep the log going day by day, as the fella says, and I have it all handwritten then, and I pass it on to my brother, and he does each entry in the log. And then just mention the Nordica then. She got a great nickname over the years. She's called the Boomerang because she's suitable for everywhere, every port. She has no problems getting in with link spans or whatever. So that's her nickname, Boomerang.
Very good, and a nice way to end that segment. And in further ferry news, we've recently heard, and it's been on the back burner for a little while, but we've recently heard that there might be an advancement in the proposed Cork to France ferry service. And there's been an interesting discussion in recent months around the proposed new ferry service linking Cork directly with France under the working name of Hibernia Line. And as far as I'm aware, the idea is to establish a regular RoPax ferry route from the port of Cork, most likely Ringaskiddy, to Boulogne-sur-Mer in northern France. And if it goes ahead, it would cater for both passengers and freight, offering a new continental link from South Ireland and reducing reliance on routes that transit through the UK and, of course, through Rosslare. The proposed service is very ambitious, potentially operating several sailings per week, using a vessel or vessels capable of carrying several hundred passengers along with significant freight capacity. And supporters of the plan see it as a boost for tourism, regional connectivity, and, of course, post-Brexit trade, particularly for the Munster region. In terms of where things stand right now, the project is still, as we understand, at proposal and developmental stage, and Hibernia Line has been engaging in planning and feasibility work and discussions around ports, vessels and funding. However, no confirmed launch date has been announced, and the venture is understood to be still seeking the necessary investment and final improvements before any service can begin. So, while the idea of a Cork France ferry is very much alive and continues to generate interest, it remains one to watch, and if it does come to fruition, it would mark significant addition to Ireland's direct maritime links with mainland Europe. So we'll keep a close eye on developments there, and as I say, things do seem to be moving forward again with regards to Hibernia Line. In further news from the Marine Investigation Board reform, from tomorrow, the 1st of January 2026, Ireland will replace its Marine Casualty Investigation Board with a new Marine Accident Investigation Unit. So a slight change in name, but introducing update accident notification requirements for all Irish waters. And this restructuring, I understand, aims to strengthen independent investigation of marine incidents and improve safety standards across fishing, merchant and recreational sectors. So if that's the aim, we do hope it comes true, but we also hope that it doesn't put too much of a burden on small operators in particular with additional paperwork, etc. And that wraps up our news from around the coast. And of course, as always, if there's anything you'd like to draw our attention to and anyone you'd like to give a shout out to on the podcast, please drop us a line, leave us a review, or get in touch via the Facebook page. We now move on to our little bit of fun at the end of each podcast, and it's our Maritime Words of the Week. And this week's Maritime Words of the Week is the phrase chock-a-block. And it's a phrase I remember from a very early age at home, regularly used to describe big crowds or places packed full. And you would have certainly heard it earlier in this podcast when we spoke about the opening of the Maritime Centre here in Rosslare all those years ago. And of course, the origins of chock-a-block, the origins lie at sea, of course. And on sailing ships, block and tackle systems were hauled until the blocks jammed tightly together at the top normally of the mast. And this was known as being chock-a-block. And over time, the phrase entered everyday language. And as we know, there's so many different phrases that we now use in everyday language that are deeply seated in the maritime world. So next time you're describing something that's full to the brim or full to capacity, why not use chock-a-block as a little nod to our maritime past? A little segment now before we go is on this day, particularly as it's New Year's Eve, we'd like to share with you something that happened on this day in maritime history. And on New Year's Eve, way back in 1862, one of the most influential warships ever built, the USS Monitor, was lost at sea off the North Carolina coast. The Monitor was a revolutionary ironclad American Civil War vessel and changed naval warfare forever. Her low-lying hull and rotating gun turret marked a decisive break from centuries of wooden warship design. Earlier the same year, she'd fought in the famous Battle of Hampton Roads, a clash that effectively signalled the end of wooden fleets as the dominant force of the sea. But on New Year's Eve, while being towed along the Atlantic coast, the Monitor encountered severe winter weather. Heavy seas overwhelmed the vessel, and despite efforts to save her, she foundered and sank, and unfortunately, 16 crew members lost their lives. And more than 160 years on, the story of the Monitor remains a powerful reminder of how the sea sits at the intersection of innovation, weather, risk, and human courage. And it feels especially fitting to reflect on that as one year closes and another begins. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Steady As She Goes, coming to you on New Year's Eve. We wish everybody a very happy 2026. As always, thanks to everyone who supports the Rosslare Harbour Maritime Centre, and of course our listeners. Please share the podcast, like the Facebook page, and now of course you can jump on TikTok as well. We'll be bringing you more about our TikTok page in future episodes. We're back open at the centre on Saturday the 10th of January from 12 noon to 1600 hours I should say. Smoko will occur at around 1500 according to Captain Brian Clare, and tabnabs will be in great supply, we hope, following the Christmas festivities. We look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for listening, take care wherever you are, and until next time, steady as she goes.